What is going on, guys? Pal in the shop. And have you ever wondered if you take a used bottom end, throw some aluminum heads, a cheap dual plane intake, and a decent flat tappet cam, how much power you can make? Well, you're gonna find out tonight on our little 355 small block Chevy. Let's check it out. So last week on the dyno, we actually dyno tested two engines in one day. We did the 355 flat tappet aluminum head engine here, and we did the Dingle Ball 2.0, which is a Vortec headed roller cam engine, both similar compression, and we battled them out on the dyno. We're going to talk mostly about this bad girl right here tonight, and the video coming on this impressive little sucker is going to be coming up real soon. This engine right here started off as life as a trade-in engine. The bottom end that I got is just a 010 two-piece rear main seal block. I had a trade-in. The engine was a dud. I had some smogger heads on it, really crappy cam. But when I took it in on trade, I didn't realize how little miles the bottom end had on it. So when I pulled it apart, the engine was in really good shape underneath. I did a leak down test before I pulled it apart, and it was pretty good. The cylinders looked good. I pulled the bearings. They looked really good. So I ended up just putting it back together with a fresh rear main seal. The two-piece rear main seal was looking pretty good. I put in a fresh oil pump just for good measure, and just sealed her back up and put her together. But I got rid of the smogger heads, and I threw on a set of these cheap aluminum heads that we see everywhere. We see them under Skip White, DNA Performance, AFR Enforcers. There's so many copies and different versions of this head that are exactly the same. They're basically a copy of an old dart casting. But we threw those on with a set of flat tappet springs. The pistons, I should say, in it are flat top valve, 4 valve relief pistons, bored 30 over. That's what makes this the 355. So with this bottom end and these heads, I had to mill down the heads to get the compression I wanted. Our final compression ratio with this engine was 10.3. So we threw a dual plane intake on there, and then just a nice flat tappet cam. I went with a single pattern flat tappet cam on this, which is a 231 at 50 from Howard's on a 108 LSA. We threw a set of 1.6 roller tip rocker arms. We ended up reusing the timing chain, double roller timing chain that was in it. We ended up reusing the push rods. They were the right size, 7.8. So basically we took a used bottom end that was in good shape with flat top pistons. We threw a set of new heads, a better cam, a dual plane intake, threw an HEI distributor on it, a 750 Holley, and we threw it on the dyno to see what kind of power we could make. So our best pull on this engine came with our 750 carburetor, ran on 91 octane gas, and best timing of 37 degrees. Made the best pull with a tapered combo spacer. I'll give you the numbers with the spacer the right way because it made better peak horsepower that way, and then I'll show you the difference between the two in a second. 4,600 RPM, we made peak torque at 420.15, and the peak horsepower came in at 6,000 RPM of 410.89. So we'll call that 420 and 411 horsepower on this bad girl. It did squeak past the 400 mark, but only with the spacer. Let me show you the difference of when we took the spacer off. So take a look at that right there. That is the difference from why we run these tapered combo spacers. They always seem to work well. This is with it right side up, and like I said, that's the difference. That the higher numbers for 11 horsepower peak and 420. Without the spacer, we were still around 420 torque, a little bit lower RPM, 4,200 RPM, and our peak horsepower was 395.77, so about 396 versus 411 horsepower right there. And you can see we pick up power pretty much right up from 4400 all the way up to the top. And then when we flip the combo spacer over, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Dual plane intake, but you can see it's notched out. So when we run these tapered combo spacers, this is the proper way to run them, okay? So with this part of the pointed towards the intake and the holes of the spacer towards the carb. But typically we find on dual planes, if we flip them upside down, and run the holes of the carb towards the intake, they tend to make better average power. The ones with the notches cut out don't react as drastic as ones that don't. You're gonna find, but typically it's still gonna follow the same pattern. I'll show you in a second. It just isn't that much of a difference as we've seen before. But we're gonna run it upside down in either way, and I'll show you the difference on that. But typically upside down like that on a dual plane works the best. So what do you think of the results on our little budget build used bottom end 355 here? I was a little disappointed. I was hoping to see 4¼ horse, 4¼ foot-pounds of torque. We were close on the torque, little down on the horsepower. It's a good test though. We saw how much difference the spacers can make. You know, it's a decent little engine for what it is. But I want to be completely clear. I want to tell you guys a little bit about these heads. So when you're buying these heads, make sure you check a few things, especially if they're assembled. The valves that sometimes come in these are not back cut. This was the case in these. The valves weren't back cut, so I put a 30-degree back cut on the intake valve. If you're not sure about that, ask your machinist or someone that can do that for you. It's important. It helps with flow. The second thing is I had these heads milled down. They were originally advertised at 65 or 64 cc's. They were 65 cc's. I milled them down to 59 cc's. So again, you can ask your machinist to do that if you need to get them down to get the compression up. If you're trying to match the kind of power this makes, compression helps make power everywhere. So with the 59 cc chamber, we got this thing up to about 10.3 to 1. All those things considered, also I went in and didn't really do any porting, just a little bit of cleanup of the flashing in the ports, and just a little bit of cleanup, and all those things added up help with flow. I'm going to post the flow numbers for you guys so you can see. They're going to be a little bit more than what these were stock. So these flow around 243 stock. I have to check my notes. Peak flow in the intake. And I got close to 260 once we had them all milled and cleaned up in the back cut and everything. So I just want to be completely clear to make sure you guys are kind of getting the same results when you're dealing with a set of heads like this. Another thing is to make sure you use good lifters, okay? Flat tappet cams can be scary. I used a set of AC Delco lifters on this thing. I'll post the part number. Also, a set of Howard's lifters are also a good option. Make sure you use proper break-in oil and proper break-in sequence or procedures, and don't run too much spring pressure. Make sure you're running proper flat tappet springs so we don't run too much spring pressure when we're breaking in cams. Always a bad idea. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Did this make as much power as you thought? Did it make more power? I asked on my last YouTube short, and also I asked on my Instagram account what guys were thinking this would make for power. There was a wide range of guesses from 375, I think, to 500 and something, some joke guesses, 800, but I think some guys, it looks like a 500 horsepower motor with the aluminum heads. It sounds like a 500 horsepower motor. It has a nice idle, and that I almost forgot to mention. If you're wondering about the idle, I'll post a little clip about that I have on my phone. And also it idles with about 11 inches of vacuum with no vacuum advance hooked up. 10 to 11 inches, you could probably squeeze 12 out of it if you had the vacuum advance hooked up on the distributor. You got the timing just right. So you're right. But it's right on the borderline. You could probably get away with power brakes on this combination as long as you build it with this amount of compression. If you did a 383, you'd definitely be fine. If you copied this as a 383, you'd make even more power and you'd have even more vacuum. So that's another good option if you're looking for that. I have to tell you guys though, Our Dingleball 2.0 absolutely smoked our aluminum headed engine here on the dyno. I'm not going to tell you the results on that, but make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because you're going to want to see this engine. This thing's an absolute beast for what it is. Only 10-to-1. It actually has less compression than this, and it made way more power. That thing is awesome. I even put I'll put a comparison of this engine versus that on a dyno graph, and you guys can see when I do the video for that. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new here. If you're back from returning, I appreciate every one of you coming to check out my videos. Every time you guys come and check out these videos, it makes it easier for me to do this kind of stuff. Dyno time isn't the cheapest thing, so it helps, and I honestly really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, hit them below. Don't forget to hit that like button. I appreciate it, guys. See you in the next one.